Welcome back, everybody. If you joined us in our previous sessions, welcome back. If you're joining for the first time, I was always taught to leave the last for best, or the best for last. So welcome. On behalf of Elsevier South Africa, I extend a warm welcome to all of you to this year's Library Connect. My name is Dion Libbe. I'm the Solutions Manager for Research Intelligence for Elsevier. And like you've heard before, joining me today are my colleagues John Sturley, Account Manager for South Africa, Lucius Kumbi, as you've just seen, Senior Customer Consultant for Research Intelligence, Danesh Rimudli, Customer Consultant for Core Products, and Mohammed Sayed, Customer Marketer for Elsevier Africa. Just a few notes, just a reminder, please use the Q&A box should you have any questions throughout the session. Q&A will be addressed in the last 15 minutes of the session. We will try to answer as many questions as possible. The recording and presentations from today will be available on the platform tomorrow and will be available for the next 3 days to download. Please do visit our virtual experience website. Please pay a visit to the exhibition center where you can get valuable product information about the Elsevier portfolio. I'll put a link to the exhibition stands in the chat box for anybody who may not have gotten that before. As a reminder, to view the speaker, please select View on the top right corner of your screen and select Side-by-Side Speaker. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, my colleague, Ahmed Helmi. Ahmed is currently the Engineering and Geoscience Solutions Manager for Elsevier in Africa. With more than 10 years of experience, Ahmed has supported faculties of engineering and science in matters of education, development, and research transformation across Africa, Middle East, and Central Asia. Ahmed, with that, over to you.
Thank you very much Dion for this beautiful introduction. I apologize for not opening my camera because my connection is not that strong. So in purpose of keeping a good connection, I hope that my PowerPoint will suffice. Thank you very much for attending, and I hope the workshops today wasn't that long so that you have still some energy for a discussion with me today. As my colleagues have mentioned, and as per your calendar, this is a small discussion on the reality of virtual and remote education, trying to share some experiences and some success stories, and talking a little bit also on the future of education. Very quickly, what are we discussing today? We are discussing a quick look at the future of engineering and applied sciences education and emerging trends. We're going to discuss briefly things that you have already been going through every day for the past year, on the changes within the engineering education and sciences education before COVID and after COVID. And we have a quick look into the concept of active learning, a little bit of examples of Elsevier initiatives to support the needed transformations, and a quick overview on how Elsevier solutions fit the future of engineering education and also applied sciences. So I just want to start with a little bit of some important questions that we need to ask. First, it is, what is the future direction of engineering and applied sciences education? What are the, I'm sorry, what are the features of new engineering and applied sciences programs? And what challenges constrain progress of the needed development? As you can see, of course, a lot of these questions and a lot of my slides will be a little bit focused on engineering and applied sciences education, as that's my specialty and my background. But I am sure that a lot of the same concepts that we are discussing can be applied to all subject areas and all matters. Maybe there's a uniqueness for applied sciences when we're discussing this, because there's a lot of technology aspect to it, and there's a lot of interactivity aspect to it as well, that needs a little bit of immersion of the student in the educational environment that is created by the university, created by their lecturers, and of course supported keenly by their libraries. So a very important quote comes from Professor Ed Crowley. Engineers will address the complex societal challenges of the 21st century by building a new generation of machines, materials, and systems. We should fundamentally rethink how we educate engineers for this future. Dr. Ed Crowley is a Ford Professor of Engineering in the Department of Aeronautics and Astronautics and faculty coordinator for the new Engineering Education Transformation NEET. A lot of my discussion points today, I have relied a lot on the work of very good initiatives done by MIT and by various universities across the globe that are leading when it comes to engineering education transformation. You'll find most of the references for the content that I'm using in the reference links below each slide. So, for instance, if we are looking at what is the future direction for engineering and applied sciences education, we can look directly to different trends that are trying to define the future of applied sciences and technology, and science, technology, and engineering education. For instance, engineering, chemistry, and geology education leadership is more and more global and less focused on US and Northern European institutions. We're seeing more and more ideas, creative ways to educate the students, and important initiatives coming out of Australia, coming out of China, coming out of Latin America, and hopefully with your support, your faculties as well in Africa would be also part of that global trend of being educational leaders when it comes to the direct needs of the world and the future for future engineers. There's also a shift towards programs that integrate student-centered learning with a curriculum oriented to pressing challenges of the 21st century, whether it's social, environmental, or technological. Now, there is a huge shift that is happening around the world right now, and a lot of the lecturers that I've talked to across South Africa, across Africa in general, and maybe also across different parts of the Middle East, have a strong opinion and a strong position that we need to catch up to these initiatives and catch up to these ideas, and they're trying to bring this kind of mentality to their faculties in South Africa. And you'll find them asking for more and more different, diverse and different tools and ways to support that kind of mentality and that kind of change. Also, there is a move towards socially relevant and outward-facing engineering curricula, such as curricula emphasizing student choice, multidisciplinary learning, and social impact and societal impact, coupled with the breadth of student experiences outside of the classroom, outside of the traditional engineering disciplines, and across the world. That means on a very young age, we'll be seeing more of the different skills and trends that we see from postgraduate students. On an undergrad level, students right now are being pushed to look across multidisciplines. They are asked to look beyond the classroom. A lot of the faculties are expanding the kind of collaboration that they have with different industries and with different parts of the society to also the undergrad education, not only on the postgrad education elements. So when we're asking all these students to push forward and to push the boundary further, whether through discipline or through their interaction with the society or their interaction with the outside world of the faculty, that means that we need to support them with either the flexibility of such educational environment and with the proper tools and mentality and strategies to support these movements. There is also an emergence of a new generation of educators with the capacity to deliver student-centered curricula at scale. These are the thought leaders that I've been talking to. Every faculty in South Africa, every faculty in Africa has some of those progressive, very interested and very innovative educators that I think maybe as librarians you see them the most, because they probably will be always reaching out to you to understand what is the new resources that you have that can support their innovative approaches towards education. Now, institutions are already moving forward with such an educational models, and we are seeing examples across the world with the how aggressive this transformation has become. So there are many emerging examples of achieving curricular coherence and integration through a connective spine of design projects in the longer term with world's leading engineering programs, maybe those that blend off-campus, personalized learning, accessed online as students need it, and with experimental learning, both in work-based placement and on campus. A lot of these findings, a lot of these important findings actually come in a sort of a very good and concise report that was that names global state art engineering education, that was done and assisted through a team of researchers through MIT. Also, the link for that report is in the slide, and I would really encourage you to take a look through the full report. So one of the examples that were said was one of the case study institutions that was in that report was a university and a faculty of engineering in Australia. So it was a newly established faculty with a 5.5-year program combining an 18-month on-campus education framed around a series of project-based challenges. So this is a word that you'll keep hearing a lot in the future, where it's project-based challenges, where it's competition-based education, setting students into a competitive mood to find answers for real-life problems. And with the 4-year off-campus work-based learning. So there's a lot of integration with the world, with the industry, with the needs of the surrounding environment. Including both knowledge and skills, it's delivered online and accessed independently by students. So there's even before COVID-19, they were pushing the lecturers and the students to create an online environment for learning. And they're encouraging their students to autonomously and actively seek the different tools and the resources that you have through the library and through the university to do their own self-approaches or self-learning. And when they needed, the program was described as a completely rethinking of what engineering education ought to look like, with a potential to be a very influential example if they can pull it off in entirety. Another one of the questions that we were asking is that what are the features for new engineering and applied sciences program? So when we're talking about these kind of progressive approaches towards education and these kind of transformation, what are these features? How can we look at, and what determines that this is one of these programs that we are discussing? You'll find that they have an increasing integration of work-based learning. So you'll find a lot of your faculties already are adopting design subject areas and are adopting design specifications and design requirements across different subject areas and across all disciplines, whether they are in geology, in chemistry, or in engineering. And if it's not applied and designed, they'll be research focused and discovery focused. There'll be a dual emphasis on engineering design and student self-reflection, a wide range of technology-based student-led extracurricular activities and experiences. Again, they will encourage students to do projects, whether it was multidiscipline between different majors or even between different faculties. Focusing on problem identification as well as problem solution. This applies to all sciences. This applies to all technology-based education. Emerging capabilities in online learning and blended learning. Again, we're already seeing this kind of transformation because of COVID, where we're forced to see the acceleration. So even if the faculty or one of your faculties or some professors didn't really invest in this kind of new approaches, the transformation that we're seeing right now because of COVID and because of the blended learning that we're all forced to adhere to because of the lockdowns actually makes it much more viable that this kind of transformation will be accelerated. The availability of new tools and resources to support and advance the educational approach. Again, this partnership between library and faculties will be actually expanded on, because there has to be the owners that support the different tools and the different environments created for these faculties and for these lecturers to operate. There's a long-standing partnership with industry across most of the advanced faculties in Africa and in South Africa in particular, but that will be emphasized even more as they inform the engineering curriculum as well as the engineering research agenda. So again, the curriculums as well will be a little bit skewed towards the environmental needs and the industrial needs of the immediate environment to the faculty and of course to the world. Of course, this is not easy, and these ideas are not new. They've been there, let's say, very emphasized for the past 10 years, growing in support in the past 5. But you can see that even with these different hurdles, the current situation that we are in is going to accelerate this kind of thinking and will accelerate these kind of initiatives and strategies. So some of the challenges that constrain these kind of progresses is the alignment between government and universities and their priorities and vision for engineering education. Of course, how to regulate these kind of courses, how to accredit these kind of initiatives in education as well. The challenge of delivering high quality student-centered education to large and diverse student cohorts. Across Africa, our faculties, our universities have an enormous number of students. How can you do such a big, flexible programs to a larger number of students? And how can you give each student the focus and the support that they need? And how can you grow their skills to be more self-dependent and to be independent in their search, in their discovery, and they can just connect with the wider network for support? Of course, the siloed nature of many of the engineering schools and universities, and of course that applies to geology and sciences as well, universities inhibits collaboration and cross-disciplinary learning. I think we're seeing a lot of the culture shift here across all different faculties when it comes to research. But now when it comes to education, how can we bring that same spirit to and break the silos as well between departments, between faculties in the same university, or between faculties across different universities in the same region? And of course, faculty appointment, promotion, and tenure systems reinforce an academic culture that does not appropriately prioritize and reward teaching excellence. This is, I think, more of a general topic that the research has found, and I think that is addressed differently from one university to the other. Another of the different concepts that might be very interesting as well, that is again not new, but now is one of the core of what we are seeing within this kind of progress, is active learning. And what does it mean to be involved or build your curriculum in active learning? So a method of learning in which students are actively or experimentally involved in the learning process, and where there are different levels of active learning dependent on the student's involvement. Again, this is all about action. This is always about go to action and how to build the fundamental search and research skills that we normally try and build for postgraduate and PhD students, and implement them early on the undergrad level as well as the researcher student level, so that they will be more easily integrated into an active learning environment. Of course, promoting research-based learning through investigations and contains authentic scholarly content. So here comes again the library role through the discovery tools and through the different scholarly content that you avail for these students on an early age, that they need to work out the right content where they can actually trust on an early age, again, how they can teach some of the concepts using the resources that you provide. Encouraging, of course, leadership skills through the students and self-development, creating an atmosphere suitable for collaboration, and cultivating a dynamic environment through interdisciplinary learning and generating high-profile activities for better learning experience. Again, the library has a big role when it is promoting interdisciplinary interaction and interdisciplinary collaboration as well, because you serve all different disciplines and your resources have multidisciplinary use. So again, you're a big part of that picture and you're a big part of that change. And of course, the integration of prior with new knowledge to encourage rich structure of knowledge among the students, and of course, the task-based performance enhancement within the curriculum itself. Again, curriculums are more and more task-based, where the students are taking with these different projects, whether they're research or design, and they need all these kind of support from the different tools, whether it's interactive tools or whether it's content-based tools that can launch them into the right direction. Before I go into a quick look on how the science and technology education before COVID and after COVID has been affected, and what kind of support that Elsevier has been always trying to support, I hope that if you have any questions on the topics that we have already discussed, please ask them now so I can address them before we carry on. Okay. Now, of course, Elsevier has been working closely with all of you. You're all our partners in South Africa, and we've been working with each other for a very long time. So education before disruption caused by COVID-19, the lessons, of course, took place inside physical environments in schools. Students had constant access to laboratories as well as physical libraries and resources. Internet access typically granted through the institutional IPs and gateways. I think during COVID-19, there is a huge issue with internet connection with remote students, of course, and the direct interaction between students and teachers was a fundamental part of their experience, of their educational experience, and of their educational progress. Also, increasing need to link academia to the industry, needs to updating of the curriculum to include new technologies and applications. Again, all of the points that we've discussed, whether it's with active learning or whether with the new trends in engineering education or science education, has been there, has been the foundations or the initial foundations for these ideas has already been there. And the discussions that we have with the different professors and with the different libraries are very evident to that. But right now, they're going to be accelerated. Pushing students to use reliable resources and references. I think one of the biggest things that we've always been working with the library hand in hand to address is to address the culture part for their students. Whether, of course, for the researchers and for the postgraduate students, with their accessibility to different resources and the right use of different resources, or the early adoptions of proper e-resources and proper library resources and references from the undergrads that facilitates as well that kind of transition to keep that kind of knowledge and keep that kind of skill when they are going into the research phase. So for South Africa, personally, and the team for engineering education as well and engineering solutions, we work with many leading universities in South Africa where faculties of engineering and faculties of science have a strong research output and a strong undergrad programs. We also were working closely supporting these universities, research centers with high-profile international collaborations. And of course, we work closely with the library, with the engineering departments and the departments of geology and chemistry to understand their current needs and to understand how we can be support. So, of course, when we're talking about engineering solutions and specifically, we have Novel and Geofacet and EV, where we were working closely with those leading universities, whether helping professors update and enrich their curriculum with more of interactive data, again, pushing forward with their, or actually answering their needs into new content or new interactive tools to be embedded within their tasks that they give to the students, or whether supporting their design-based curriculum or design-based subjects. Of course, some of the universities, Novel and EV was very integral in their files into their accreditation efforts, and also the support, the particular support for design subject areas across all different departments. That, of course, is alongside the long-standing tradition of supporting the research centers and the researchers with advanced and interactive resources. Another example that might that you might have worked with us through South Africa or any other in any other context as well I would also discuss how we work with Namibia, as they have younger faculties of engineering and sciences with a more focus on undergrad education. So the discussion here was always in advancing their undergrads. So with our experience in this arena, we work closely with the deans more and with the engineering librarians to suggest and support the classroom education with more reliable interactive resources. And here it has been very interesting to see that because of the youth of that faculties, and because these faculties are still a bit young, they have more flexibility in employing the more advanced approaches and more advanced design-based curriculums and tools. So they are adopting early the latest technologies and the latest trends in how they're educating their students. And also we saw that there's a lot of changing in the undergrad students' culture towards reliable references and e-resources provided by the library from the constant interactions that we had. We also, of course, supported the university strategy to research transformation, as they're still building their research capacity and their research building. Another example that would be interesting as well was, for instance, coming from the UAE universities, where they're more focused on how to link their curriculums with industry and how to focus their curriculums with the needs and the proper focuses of their immediate industrial partners. So we actually had to work with them to create different workshops and different curriculums that are more industry focused, that prepare their students into the mentality of how they can support industry, whether by reliability of the knowledge that they're using, or the protection of the different processes, and also embedding a lot of the use cases that we get from our industrial partners in Elsevier, as we work with industry, as well we work with academia, and trying to bridge that gap in providing the professors with a lot of use cases and case studies that are industrially based and coming from the industry, so that they can embed it within their curriculum. Now, after COVID-19, of course, this was a huge disruption to all of our activities and all of our regular ways of going about work. So there, of course, we have all turned into virtual, whether it's a virtual working place for the university staff and lecturers, or whether it's virtual classrooms for the students. Remote access to libraries and digitized resources when available has become the utmost way to go forward, whether with the curriculums or with the student research or with their education. The scarcity of internet access among remote students right now, that they only have their data on their cell phones to access some of the resources, has arisen as a big problem and as a big hindrance towards how we can support long distance learning or remote learning or virtual classrooms. Interactions among students and teachers are limited to virtual environment, which actually pushed professors to use more interactive tools into their examples, to use more interactive tools and platforms within their lectures, so that they can visually communicate to the students what they are discussing, and as well as to give the students an introduction to the tools that they themselves can use it interactively to find about a lot of different information that otherwise they would have asked directly their professor with the direct interaction. Models are, you need to work closely with different lecturers. So it's not just a question of allowing them or giving them access to resources, but also to come up with new ideas and come up with new workshops for them to utilize these different tools and these different platforms in a way that bridges the gap between how they were teaching in the classroom and now how they're teaching online. And of course, the needs to swiftly update the curriculum with new industrial information. So right now, with all the universities that we're working with, we saw the struggle. It's a common struggle across Africa and across the world, but we are seeing more and more success with the transformation that the different faculties are going, when they're already been on the frontier of using these kind of tools in the advanced way and changing the curriculums into a more task-based, creative, active learning way. So when they went to transformation or when they went to online because of COVID, they maybe were a little bit of a few meters, if not like a lot of steps in the front from other different departments or other different lecturers that were not employing such interactive approaches towards their classroom education. So I just want to bring your attention to some of the initiatives that we have worked with across Africa and some of the successes that we've seen in not only supporting the online education and online research with different lecturers, but also how we are actively seeing that our efforts are being translated into pushing forward the intentions of these lecturers to advance their curriculum and to step forward with the different deans into a more progressive approach to education. So, for instance, a lot of the geology departments are suffering due to the lockdown, as geology, for instance, cannot be taught without the field. Students not only need to find lectures, go to lectures, or find information in the library, they need to go to field trips. They need to understand what the environment itself looks like as a geologist. So using Geofacets, we created a number of workshops online where we invited all the different lecturers and universities, one of which was very successful. It was hosted by the lecturers at the Western Cape University, and they invited a lot of the different geology departments across South Africa and Africa as well. So there was a lot of attendance even from places like Namibia, Nigeria, or Ethiopia to the webinar that was hosted by the University of Western Cape, where we demonstrated how they can use both of Google Earth and Geofacets with the enormous amount of information and literature that is available on Geofacets to create a virtual field trip. And because it was a virtual field trip, we are trying to, every time we are repeating this virtual field trip, we're trying to take them somewhere new. So one of the workshops was to Nigeria. The other workshop was, of course, to South Africa, to the Cape Fold Belt area, where we use Geofacets information and Google Earth as well to map out and explore the geology of the Cape Fold Belt. And as you can see, we were able to interact with the students and with the lecturers to map out a full field trip online with pictures, with props, and with different maps and figures and interactive data that they, at least if they're not in the field right now, they are at least one step closer to understanding how it looks like in real life until we are out of the lockdowns and we are allowed again to go to actual field trips. As you can see, these are all pictures from the workshop itself and how we utilize the different data. So working with the different professors in the classroom or outside of the classroom with these kind of approaches have allowed us to make use of the interactivity that Novel or EV or Mendeley or Geofacets has in extending the students' experience real life into real life cases from industry and opportunity to work through multiple scenarios of what does it mean to be an engineer. We helped into developing the critical thinking and analysis skills used using the different multiple resources such as Novel or EV or Geofacets, and preparing the students as well to work in team-based engineering environments with a technology-driven curriculum as well. So one of the biggest examples that also in success stories that I might share with you was what we have helped in mitigating in North Africa and in Egypt. So we have a long-term partnership with the Egyptian Knowledge Bank in Egypt, which represents all the Egyptian students, faculties, and universities. So it's a national scale initiative where they had access to novel geofacets and EV and Science Direct and Scopus. And of course, due to COVID-19 last May and lockdown measures, all written exams for engineering and applied sciences and geology and chemistry departments, all written exams have been canceled for all the years but the final year. And all junior engineering and science students were required to replace their written exams for the first time to submit research papers, research projects, surveys, review papers, take-home research assignments, and to pass the subject. So you're suddenly asking for the very first time from undergrad students to commit to research and research papers and review papers and to write them and to submit them into all different subject areas to pass. So that, of course, was a huge transformation and a huge sudden task on them. And of course, they had only 1 month to comply with that requirement. So using AI Compendics on EV and Novel, and of course with Geofacets, we worked in designing a full week of training workshops to accelerate the students' response and to build the basic research and search skills on a level of the undergrads so that they would have some understanding of what does it mean to use reliable resources, when should they use a reference, when should they use an article, how can they cite this kind of data, how can they go about in a design project, how can they finalize and use this data in a proper way, and how can they reference all of the resources that they've used in achieving this. So we had to build all of this curriculum in less than a few days and launch it within 1 week because they had 1 month to comply. And successfully, we had more than 32,000 interaction with students during this kind of course. That actually was, as you can see, covered a wider range of skills that undergrads sometimes need to use, but a lot of the faculty members, as we have discussed across South Africa or Egypt, think that they should maybe be exposed to that more within their curriculum. So right now, what we have done is that after the success of this initiative, actually we've been asked to implement that on a continuous basis. So right now, we have discussed that with more than 30 faculties of engineering and faculties of science across Egypt, where they have all adopted these kind of technical courses and workshop trainings within their undergrad curriculum. And as you can see on the screen right now, this is a snapshot of the different subjects and the different subject area lectures, where a lot of them have already incorporated the workshops given by Elsevier on these different types of content, whether it's focusing on Science Direct and Scopus, Engineering Village and Novel, or Geofacets. And they've also extended that to different workshops to be officially part of the curriculum, not only for the undergrads, but for the postgrads, for the TAs, and also for some of the lecturers as well. So similarly, as we've seen this kind of success, we consulted with a lot of the different deans of engineering across South Africa, especially, and across Africa in general. And we had a huge response from a lot of different professors across South Africa that wanted to implement a similar course. And we asked them exactly what they need within the course. And within their feedback, we rebuilt that kind of workshop series. And we've held it during this October, last week, between the 15th and the 20th of October, where we covered a quick starter's guide to undergrad research, engineering research in undergrads, supporting geological research, and writing up research without plagiarism. And I hope that you've all received the recording for these webinars, as we have made them available on demand, because a lot of these different professors told us that they're going to ask their students to view these different workshops in different lectures in different times across the year. So the design was not only for them to see it live, but also to have access to it within the time frame that is specified by their professor. And so far, we've seen more than a couple of thousand students attending these different webinars. And I think across the month, we're going to be seeing more and more of South African students attending these recorded workshops on the request of their professors. Just to end on that point before I go to the last section, a very important point here is that a lot of the discussions that we've seen with the lecturers say that these lectures and these workshops that we've created are not only there to support them during COVID and the blended learning approaches that they're doing, but also it is accelerating their strategies that have been lingering for some time into the transformation of the educational strategy of their departments. So I'm just going to go for a quick view, an overview of the different engineering solutions that I've been mentioning and how their interactivity and reliability is utilized within these different workshops and within these different educational frameworks. Whether it's for geology, earth sciences, oil and gas, mining, engineering, of course, Geofacets give an enormous amount of information with a very interactive, highly interactive spatial search for the different students, where they can find different maps, figures, seismographs, and tables. Over 2 million, actually 2.2 million maps, figures, and tables that will be available for the lecturers, researchers, and students. And again, coming from all across the important geological literature providers, not only Elsevier and publishers. And of course, we have discussed Novel several times through the slides as one of the leading technical information solutions that delivers reliable technical answers and supporting engineering workflow and decision-making, as it provides the students with a plethora of more than 12,000 titles across 35 subject areas from over 150 different publishers. But again, the most important part of Novel, it's interactivity, whether applying the machine learning approaches to finding the right data hidden within these books, or giving the student the interactive tool through an interactive graph, an interactive table, a material property search engine, or an interactive equation as well that would support him with his design efforts, finding regulation material or finding case studies that also would support his efforts. And of course, Novel not only covers the research phase, but it covers from early on within the second, third, and fourth and fifth year. Novel also covers all the needed information needed by them. And of course, EV or Engineering Village as a discovery platform that supports the different students, whether they're doing independent research, project management, technical writing skills, with a lot of different resources that would support their understanding of new trends in technology, or find ideas for projects, or find ideas for research. So in the end, I hope that I have covered some of the important information that I wanted to deliver, and that I have took you through a little bit of a glimpse on how the future of science and technology, engineering, and chemistry and geology education is going to look like. A lot of this information comes from reliable research on the future of education. A lot of it also comes from success stories and interactions that we had with your engineering professors in different faculties. In the end, we're working together in a long-term partnership to advance the students and the faculties to the rightful place to where they graduate proper engineers into the workforce, and also produce innovative and important research that is valuable to the world. And of course, that hopefully this is a very good chance for Africa as well to advance and to emerge as a leader within the education and the output of engineering research. Thank you very much. I'm now open for any questions that you'd like.
Nothing in the Q&A box at this stage. Ahmed, I've got one for you if you don't mind.
Sure.
I just wondered, you were speaking about the Egyptian Knowledge Bank and all the written exams and so on being cancelled and replaced with research projects. Was there any comment on the sentiment of the lecturer side of it regarding the assessment load?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
I was asking if in the Egyptian Knowledge Bank, where the written exams were cancelled and replaced with research projects, was there any comment on the sentiment from the lecturers on the assessment load? Did the assessment load increase? Was it adaptation for them? Were they positive about it?
Of course, that was the assessment load. Of course, was huge, and of course, it was a bit problematic and took them some time to grade all of these papers. So I think that right now they are back to written exams as they're not under lockdown anymore. But I've seen the new mandates from all of the different deans to their departments and from all the heads of departments that more and more they are now asked that all subject areas across all years at least have a task-based approach or a research-based approach, even on a younger level. And even if they're going to maintain the written exams, they want to include more research papers into the assessment, which pushed them that they want to focus more in advancing the skills of their students to make it easier for them to find proper papers to grade rather than just copy and paste from Wikipedia. And of course, as well, they are now integrating a lot of the different solutions and discussions that we were talking about to their, and they're building some kind of learning management system that would incorporate the different solutions with the different learning experiences and the grading process as well.
Good, thank you. Any other questions from the audience? I see nothing in the chat box or in the Q&A.
Well, I think if there's no other questions, I would love to give some minutes back to the audience. It was a long day, and I hope that it was as beneficial to you as it was to us in the different discussions across all the different workshops.
Great, I agree with that. Thank you very much, Ahmed. And on behalf of the Elsevier South Africa team, we would like to thank you all for joining us in this year's Library Connect, as knowledge sharing is the foundation for building bridges to help each other overcome difficult situations. We hope you enjoyed the event and you will find the content of the sessions helpful in your organization or university. We thank all our presenters for their time and effort who contribute to the success of this event. And last but not least, we'd like to express our sincere gratitude to all the institutions and organizations that continue to partner with and trust Elsevier with your research needs. We hope to see you in person at next year's event. Looking forward to that. Just as a closing note, I have posted the links for the attendance certificates to be downloaded in the chat box. And remember that all the talks from these 2 days can still be accessed and downloaded for the next 3 days on the virtual platform. Goodbye. Keep safe and have a great evening further.